My story did not begin at a dinner table. It did not begin with jokes or loud insults. It began with a sound, a strange, sharp sound that would stay with me for months. It was a squeak of a red marker rubbing hard against a whiteboard. It seemed small at first, but it was the start of the biggest pain of my life. My name is Thaddeus Vale. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and tell me where you're watching from in the comment section, as this story is about to get rough. That morning, I walked through the hallway of our family home. I was not looking for trouble. I only wanted to return a book I borrowed from my father. Our home was big, quiet, and cold, the kind of place where your voice always sounds too loud. I passed by the doors of my brother, Corbin Vale. He was older than me by 2 years. He always liked to be in control. He liked locked doors and private meetings. Normally, I would walk by, minding my own business, but that day, something strange happened. I heard my own name, Thaddeus. Not in a soft way, not in a brother's way. It sounded like someone saying a word they did not want in their mouth. I stopped. The door to Corbin's private office was cracked open. A thin line of light fell across the floor. I stood very still. I knew it was wrong to listen, but my name held me there like a hand on my arm. Then I heard the sound. Squeak, squeak, squeak. I pushed the door just a little, just enough to see. What I saw made my stomach twist. On the wall was a giant whiteboard. On the whiteboard was our family tree. My father, my mother, who had passed away years before, Corbin, and me, except my name was gone. Completely gone. A thick red marker stain sat where my name used to be, like someone tried to scrub me out of the world, but could not clean the mess. Corbin stood beside the board with a lawyer. I had never seen that lawyer before. He was tall, with gray hair and a stiff suit. Corbin pointed at the red smear on the whiteboard. He said the words that froze my whole body. Make it like he was never part of us. Clean. Final. The lawyer nodded. Something dropped inside me. A feeling I cannot explain. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was something empty, like a hole suddenly opened in my chest. In that moment, I did not know that this small sound, squeak, 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 would become the sound that pushed me into the hardest fight of my life. I did not know that this red stain, this cruel act, would one day push me into the place God always wanted me to be. But right then, I only felt broken, and very, very alone. I walked out of the house like a ghost. My steps felt slow, heavy, almost like my shoes were filled with stones. The sun was bright that morning, but I felt cold inside. My name, wiped away by my own brother. It felt like a bad dream, but the squeak of the red marker kept ringing in my ears. That sound would not leave me. It felt like it followed me into the car, into my thoughts, into my heartbeat. I tried to breathe slowly, but my chest felt tight. I whispered a small prayer, because that is what I do when life hits too hard. Lord, help me understand. But there was no answer, just silence and pain. What did I do wrong? I whispered. That question kept circling in my head, like a bird with broken wings. I had always been a quiet brother, a gentle brother. I never fought anyone in the family. I never shouted. I never caused trouble. I worked hard at the family company. I respected my father. I honored my late mother. I prayed, stayed humble, and lived clean. So why erase me? Why wipe me like dirt? I sat on a bench and held my face in my hands. My heart felt heavy. I felt something I had not felt since childhood, the feeling of being unwanted. Then I remembered a Bible verse I had read that morning, one I had forgotten until that moment. Isaiah 41, verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. Those words felt like warm hands on my shoulders. They did not take away the pain, but they held me steady. I whispered, God, I trust you. It was all I could say. As I sat there, watching leaves fall from a tree, I did not know that this pain, this deep, shaking pain, would soon turn into something stronger. I did not know that the very thing meant to erase me would become the thing that lifted me. But for now, I just sat there broken but held. The days after seeing my name wiped from the family tree felt heavy. Every time I entered the family office, I felt invisible. Corbin walked past me like I was air. The employees avoided my eyes, pretending not to notice me. Even the sunlight felt colder, like it knew I had been erased. I tried to focus on my work. I had my own projects, my own clients, but every success felt small when Corbin could erase my existence with a single word. The red marker squeak from that morning haunted me, echoing in the back of my mind with every step. At night, I sat on the edge of my bed and prayed, holding my Bible in my hands. Isaiah 41 verse 10 had become my anchor. Fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. I whispered it over and over, feeling strength slowly return. I could not let fear control me. I would not become bitter or vengeful. That was not who I was. But I needed a way forward, a plan to reclaim my place without staining my hands with deceit. The problem was more than hurt feelings. This was real. The $370 million family fortune and the company my father built were at stake. Corbin wanted to make it his own, and if he succeeded, my future, my dignity, would be gone. This was not just about money. It was about identity, respect, and survival. I tried to talk to Father, but every time I approached him, Corbin was nearby, always listening, always intervening. Father was kind but hesitant, trusting Corbin's explanations more than mine. The injustice felt suffocating. One evening, I drove to the city park, the one with a fountain where I had always gone as a child. The water splashed softly, the sound calming my racing heart. I leaned on the stone wall and watched the sun set behind the buildings. The red marker, the erased name, the quiet betrayals, they all came back to me in waves. But sitting there, I realized something important. I did not have to fight with fists or harsh words. God had promised to be with me. I could stand firm. I could prepare wisely. I would not be erased. I decided then to document everything. My projects, the clients I had brought, the deals I had saved. I started gathering emails, contracts, reports, everything that proved my contribution to the company. Corbin might try to erase me from the board, but he could not erase proof. As I drove home that night, I felt a small spark of hope. It was not vengeance. It was justice. It was clarity. I could see that if I stayed patient, worked hard, and trusted God, the truth would eventually be revealed. And when it did, it would not just restore me, it would also show Corbin the error of his ways. I whispered to myself as I parked, I will not be invisible. God is with me. The next few weeks became a quiet storm. I turned my pain into purpose. Every evening, I sat in my study, surrounded by files, emails, and spreadsheets. I traced every project I had led. I listed every client I had brought to the family business. I wrote down every deal Corbin had tried to claim as his own. It was exhausting work. I often felt my eyes burn and my hands cramp from taking notes. But every line I recorded was a line of truth, a line that Corbin could not erase. The red marker squeak haunted me less now because I replaced it with the sound of my pen on paper, proving that I existed and had value. Sometimes I thought about confronting Corbin directly, but I knew that would only give him the satisfaction of seeing me angry. That was not the way I wanted to win. I want to be seen for my work and integrity, not for my rage. I also prayed daily, asking God to strengthen me. I asked for courage, patience, and wisdom. I reminded myself that my faith required me to remain clean in character. I could not fight with lies, tricks, or manipulation. God would fight for me if I stayed faithful. One evening, my younger cousin, Evelyn, visited my study. She had always admired me, even when the family overlooked me. "Thaddeus," she said softly, "I don't know why Corbin treats you this way, but I see everything you've done. You're not invisible to all of us." Her words touched me. I realized that while Corbin might try to erase me from the family, the people who truly mattered, the ones who loved and respected me, could not be fooled. That gave me courage. I began compiling everything into a single organized file. Each section had proof, dates, and client names. By the end, I had a binder that no one could ignore. I knew that the time would come to present this evidence to the family board. It was not about revenge. It was necessary for clarity. One night, exhausted from work, I prayed again. I whispered Isaiah 41, verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. The word sank into my soul like water in dry earth. I felt God's calm, reminding me that I was not alone. I also made a promise to myself. I would not let this injustice make me bitter. I would not let Corbin's cruelty define me. My strength would come from faith, patience, and truth. The red marker squeak, once the sound of betrayal, became a memory that reminded me why I had to act wisely. Every detail I documented, every careful note, was a step toward reclaiming my place in the family and the company. By the time I went to bed that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control over my own destiny. I knew the journey ahead would be difficult. But I also knew that with God on my side, no red marker could ever erase me. The next few weeks were tense. Every time I walked through the halls of the family company, I felt Corbin's eyes on me. He never said a word directly, but his presence pressed down on me like a shadow. He smiled politely to clients in front of me, but behind closed doors, I knew he whispered lies about me. I reminded myself to stay calm. My faith taught me patience, and my Bible verse gave me strength. Isaiah 41, verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. I couldn't control Corbin, but I could control myself. I spent long hours preparing for the moment I would have to prove my worth. Every project I completed, every client I impressed, was a quiet victory, but it wasn't easy. One afternoon, Corbin approached me in the hallway with a false smile. Thaddeus, he said, I think it's better if you focus on smaller accounts. Big clients require a certain energy. I stopped in my tracks. The words were a subtle attempt to undermine me, to make me doubt my abilities. But I took a deep breath, held my head high, and replied, Thank you, Corbin. I'll make sure every client gets the best service possible. I did not let anger escape my lips. I did not argue. I let my actions speak. That was the difference between him and me. He wanted to shame me. I wanted to be seen. That evening, I walked through the office alone. The fluorescent lights flickered above, echoing the quiet tension in the building. I thought about all the moments of betrayal I had faced, the red marker, the erased family tree, the whispers of employees. I realized something important. Every act of cruelty was a lesson, a preparation for the moment I would rise. I also realized I could not do it alone. I needed allies, people who saw my work, people who could speak the truth if necessary. I reached out to a few trusted clients and colleagues, not complain, but to maintain communication, ensuring my efforts would be recognized. I remembered Evelyn's words, You're not invisible to all of us. That small encouragement gave me courage. I knew that when the time came to reveal the truth, I would have proof, and I would stand firm. For the first time, I felt a spark of hope. The battle was not yet won, but I was no longer afraid. I had a plan and I had faith. It was a Tuesday morning when the world tilted in a direction I did not expect. I had just arrived at the office when I received a frantic call from a junior staff member. Thaddeus, you need to come. Corby, he's at the hospital. It's serious. I froze. My mind raced. I did not want harm to come to anyone, even Corbin, but my heart thudded with a mix of fear and anxiety. Without thinking, I jumped in my car and drove straight to the hospital. When I arrived, the waiting room was buzzing with confusion. Father was there, his hands gripping the armrest of his chair, looking older than I had ever seen him. Nurses moved quickly in the hallways, and the sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air. I approached Father. What happened? I asked. He shook his head. There was a minor accident, but things looked worse at first. We need to wait for updates. I felt my stomach twist. Even though I had been wronged, I was still a Christian. I could not take pleasure in anyone's suffering. I prayed quietly, asking God for protection for Corbin and clarity for myself. After an hour, a doctor appeared. Mr. Vale, he said gently, your brother is stable. He will recover fully. Relief washed over me, but I noticed something strange. In the waiting room, a few employees from the company had gathered. They spoke quietly among themselves, eyes darting toward me. It became clear that they had assumed I had orchestrated some kind of plan, that I had engineered this emergency. I looked at them, calm and steady. I did not do this. I said firmly, it was an accident. God is in control. Despite my innocence, I realized the hospital incident had created a dramatic reversal. Corbin's employees began to reconsider who truly had integrity. I had not staged anything. Yet the circumstances highlighted the difference between us. I was honest, faithful, patient. He had tried to manipulate people in the past, and now the truth was shining through without me doing a thing. When I finally saw Corbin in his hospital bed, he gave me a weak, guilty smile. I shouldn't have treated you this way, he whispered. I nodded, keeping my heart steady. Recovery comes first, I said. We'll address everything else later. In that moment, I understood a powerful truth. God fights for those who remain faithful. I did not need to orchestrate vengeance. The accident, while terrifying, had revealed who was truly trustworthy and who was not. As I left the hospital, the bright sunlight felt warm against my face. I whispered my life verse again. Fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. The red marker had lost some of its sting. Faith, patience, and truth were winning the battle, and I was ready for the next step. After the hospital incident, something inside me shifted. For months, I felt invisible, erased by my own brother Corbin, but now the world seemed to notice me in small, quiet ways. I didn't seek attention. I didn't raise my voice. I simply continued my work, trusting that truth and patience would do what I could not do with anger. Each morning, I arrived at the office before anyone else. The building smelled of polished wood and coffee. The hum of computers greeted me like a familiar friend. I spread out my documents carefully, contracts, client lists, emails, project plans, and reviewed them one by one. Every piece of evidence reminded me that I had contributed just as much as Corbin, if not more, to the family business. I also prayed daily. Lord, give me wisdom. Give me strength. Let me remain faithful and clean in heart. I closed my eyes and felt a quiet calm settle over me. Fear, anger, and doubt tried to creep in, but I remembered Isaiah 41, verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. Even in the office, I noticed the subtle shifts. A client would ask for me specifically. A colleague would whisper appreciation for my guidance. It wasn't loud recognition, but it was enough to remind me that the truth could not be erased. Corbin still walked past me, still tried to control the office with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. But now, his dominance felt smaller. I was no longer afraid. I was not plotting revenge. I was preparing for justice, patient, deliberate, and morally clean. Late one afternoon, I received a call from Father. Thaddeus, he said, I hear good things about your work. Keep going. I smiled quietly. Those words were small, but they were the first sign of trust returning. I realized that preparation was the key. The world would notice your integrity if you were consistent. The red marker of my betrayal might have erased my name from a board, but it could not erase the truth of my deeds. I didn't know when the opportunity would come. I didn't know how long it would take. But I felt certain of one thing. God was preparing the way, and I would be ready when the moment arrived. The following week, subtle changes began to appear. Clients who had once been polite but distant started requesting meetings directly with me. Emails that had gone unanswered before now received prompt, thoughtful replies. It was as if a quiet force was shifting perception in my favor. I smiled quietly to myself, remembering the hospital incident. Even without my intervention, circumstances were revealing the truth. Corbin, on the other hand, began to show cracks in his composure. I noticed him pacing more often, tapping his pen nervously during meetings, and speaking curtly to employees who had previously followed him without question. It was clear that his manipulations were no longer holding the same power. I did not gloat. I reminded myself constantly, my faith forbade me from taking pleasure in another's downfall. I was not vindictive. I was patient, ethical, and steady. The Bible had taught me that righteous anger was different from revenge, and I intended to walk that line carefully. One morning, I was called into a meeting with a major client, a firm that had long been loyal to Corbin. They sat across from me in a polished conference room, sunlight streaming through tall windows. I listened carefully to their concerns, answered their questions with honesty and expertise, and offered solutions that were both practical and fair. At the end of the meeting, the client extended a hand. "Thaddeus," he said, "you've shown clarity and integrity. We're moving forward with you." I smiled, feeling a quiet surge of vindication, not because I had beaten Corbin, but because the truth had emerged without deceit or conflict. God was quietly working through circumstances to make the right path visible. Later that afternoon, I overheard Corbin speaking to a colleague. "I don't understand why things are shifting," he said in frustration. "Thaddeus hasn't changed. Why is everyone siding with him?" I didn't respond. I simply continued my work. My strength was in restraint and integrity, not in argument or confrontation. That evening, I went home carrying my binder of evidence. It was no longer just a collection of documents. It had become a symbol of preparation, patience, and truth. I knelt by my bedside and prayed, whispering Isaiah 41 verse 10 once more. "Fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you." I realized something profound. Sometimes the battle is not fought with noise or fury. Sometimes it is fought with quiet consistency, faith, and ethical preparation. And when God is on your side, the world shifts in your favor, even without you trying to force it. The tension in the office grew every day. Corbin continued to act as if he ruled the company alone, but cracks in his control were becoming harder to hide. Clients who had once been loyal to him were reaching out to me directly. Employees who had avoided me now whispered support. The change was subtle, but it was real. I still had my binder of evidence, organized carefully, every project, every client, every deal. I did not flaunt it, but it gave me strength. It reminded me that I had done nothing wrong, and that my contributions could not be erased. The red marker from that morning months ago had long since become a symbol, a reminder that truth, once documented, cannot be hidden forever. One morning, I received a message from Father. "Board meeting scheduled for next week. Your presence required." I felt a flutter of nerves. This was the opportunity one had been preparing for, the moment when the balance could shift. I reviewed every document one last time, making sure my presentation was clear, honest, and factual. I would not attack Corbin. I would not raise my voice. I would simply present the truth and let it speak for itself. The day of the meeting arrived. The boardroom was tense. Corbin entered first, confident as always. He gave me a glance that tried to unnerve me, but I met his eyes calmly. I could see him think he's quiet, but he's prepared. Father looked tired but attentive. The other board members were polite, but cautious. Corbin opened the discussion, outlining his plans and claiming credit for past successes. I listened carefully. My heart raced, but my faith steadied me. I prayed silently, whispering Isaiah 41 verse 10. When it was my turn, I stood slowly, laying the binder on the table. I spoke clearly without emotion and presented every piece of evidence. Every client I had acquired, every project I led, every deal I had saved. I explained my work without boasting, simply stating facts. The room was silent. The squeak of my pen as I turned pages seemed louder than any words. Corbin's confident smile faltered slightly. I noticed subtle shifts in the board members' expressions, surprise, acknowledgement, doubt about Corbin's narrative. By the end of the presentation, it was clear I had not exaggerated. I had not lied. The truth had emerged. Corbin shifted in his chair, unable to regain his composure. The red marker was no longer on a board, but in my mind, I felt the echo of its sound fade, replaced by a quiet sense of triumph and relief. After the meeting, the board asked for a short break. Corbin excused himself, muttering something under his breath. I could feel the tension in the air. This was the moment when the consequences of months of unethical behavior would begin to surface. I returned to my office, trying to keep my breathing steady. I knew this was only the beginning. The hospital incident had shown the world who I was without my interference. Now, my preparation and patience were forcing Corbin to face accountability. Later that afternoon, Father called me into his private office. The sunlight poured through tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished wood floor. He gestured for me to sit. "Thaddeus," he said, his voice softer than usual, "I've been watching you. Your dedication, integrity, and patience, they have not gone unnoticed. I see the work you have done, and I understand the truth now." My heart thumped. Father had always been fair, but cautious. Hearing him acknowledge my contributions directly felt like the first real victory of this battle. "Thank you, Father," I said quietly. "I've only tried to do my best and remain faithful. I have faith that God is guiding the way." He nodded, a faint smile breaking through his usual stern expression. "And Corbin, we need to speak to him. He has been wrong, but we will approach this carefully. You have proven your worth without seeking revenge, and that is commendable." I left his office feeling both relief and determination. Corbin had begun to realize that his actions had consequences. I could see the first cracks in his confidence. He had underestimated me for years, believing that silence, avoidance, and intimidation would keep me invisible. But patience, preparation, and integrity had exposed the truth. That evening, I reflected on the journey so far. The red marker, the erased name, the whispers, the manipulation, all of it had been painful, yes, but it also taught me resilience, faith, and the power of truth. I knelt in my study and whispered prayer. "God, thank you for guiding me. I have not sought revenge, only justice. Let your wisdom continue to lead me." As I closed my eyes, I remembered a line I had said to myself months ago. I didn't want revenge. I wanted to be seen. That desire had carried me through betrayal, humiliation, and fear. And now, finally, I could see the first signs of change. Not just in the boardroom, but in Corbin himself. He would have to reckon with the truth, and I would stand strong, faithful, clean, and unwavering. The next morning, Corbin approached my office. He didn't knock. He just entered, a nervous energy in his step that I had never seen before. I looked up from my desk and saw his eyes flicker with something between fear and frustration. "Thaddeus," he began, then paused. The word seemed heavy on his tongue. I gestured for him to sit, keeping my expression calm. "Yes, Corbin?" He hesitated, like a man walking on thin ice. I don't understand how you managed to—" He stopped again. The sentence faltered, leaving the air thick and heavy. I didn't interrupt. I waited. My heart pounded, but I reminded myself, patience, true faith. I was not here to humiliate him. I was here to let the truth be seen. Finally, he sighed and leaned back. I thought I could control everything. I didn't realize you were so integral. I was wrong. I held up my hand gently. "Corbin, I am not here to punish you. That is not my way. You need to understand that my goal was never revenge. I wanted to be seen, and I wanted truth to prevail." His shoulders slumped. I see that now. I've been blind, and I hurt you. His voice cracked. I took a deep breath. The first step is acknowledging the truth. I forgive you for the intent, but actions have consequences. That is why the board will see everything clearly. You must accept it. For the first time, Corbin looked at me with genuine humility. It was not complete trust, not complete reconciliation, but it was a start, and that was enough. As he left my office, I whispered quietly to myself, "God, continue your work. Let him see the truth without me having to force it." One evening, I walked past the conference room and overheard Corbin speaking to another board member. I never understood him. I underestimated Thaddeus. He is more capable than I thought. I was wrong. I didn't step in. I just listened quietly, feeling a surge of vindication, tempered with mercy. I did not gloat. I had learned to let God fight for me. The next morning, Father called me in. "Thaddeus, the board has asked me to mediate a discussion with Corbin. They want transparency, honesty, and a chance to rebuild trust. I trust you to handle this with integrity." I nodded, praying silently. I knew this was the moment to maintain my principles while letting God guide the outcome. During the discussion, I remained calm, factual, and respectful. Corbin admitted his mistakes openly, explaining his motives. fear, insecurity, and misunderstanding of his responsibilities. It was a confession I had not demanded but had hoped for. The board listened carefully. My words were simple, honest, and true. I did not exaggerate or attack. I showed proof, explained my contributions, and emphasized the importance of family values alongside business success. By the end of the meeting, the mood had shifted. Corbin looked chastened but sincere. The board recognized the truth and my role in the company. For the first time in months, I felt that I was being seen for who I truly was. Not erased, not diminished. Later, as I left the boardroom, I whispered Isaiah 41 verse 10 again. Fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. After the board meeting and Corbin's quiet acknowledgement, I knew the next step required careful planning. I spent mornings reviewing contracts and client accounts. Each detail mattered. Every note I had taken over the past months became a tool, not of revenge, but of clarity and restoration. Corbin still walked the halls with a tight-lipped smile, pretending control, but I could sense his unease. He had been exposed by circumstances he could not manipulate, by clients who had seen the truth, and by board members who were beginning to question his authority. The day of the next board meeting arrived. The air felt tense, but I remained calm. I had prepared, prayed, and organized everything with clarity. Corbin entered the room first, confident as ever, but his steps were measured, careful. I could sense his unease. The meeting began. I started by thanking the board for their time, then calmly presented the binder of evidence I had prepared. Every document, every email, every client interaction was laid out clearly. I did not raise my voice. I did not accuse. I only showed the truth. As I spoke, I noticed other reactions. Board members exchanged glances. Corbin shifted in his chair, his confident facade cracking slightly. His attempts to dominate the room were met with factual, organized presentation. When I finished, the room was silent. Then one board member spoke. Thaddeus, your contributions are undeniable. We cannot overlook the evidence. It is clear you have been integral to this company. Father nodded. This confirms what I suspected. We need to correct the record and assign responsibilities based on merit and ethical conduct. Corbin leaned back, silent. He knew he had been exposed, not through manipulation, but through honest, patient documentation and preparation. His dominance, built on fear and secrecy, had been dismantled without my interference. I understood then that true victory is not about striking first or loudly. It is about remaining faithful, prepared, and morally upright. God moved through patience, ethics, and truth. I had not sought revenge. I had only sought to be seen. The family fortune, the company, and the respect of those around me were no longer under threat. And for the first time, I felt the quiet power of restoration, coupled with mercy and self-respect. The days following the board meeting felt lighter. The tension in the office began to dissolve, replaced by cautious respect. Clients who had once been hesitant now sought me out. Employees quietly acknowledged my guidance. And even Corbin seemed more subdued, as if he had finally begun to understand the weight of his past actions. Father called me into his office one afternoon. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting golden patterns across the polished floor. Thaddeus, he said softly, I see the difference in you. You've changed not only how the company sees you, but also how Corbin sees you. You've grown into the leader I always hoped you would become. I felt a surge of humility. I've only tried to remain faithful, Father. God has guided me every step. He nodded, and it shows. Now, it's time to formalize your position. You've earned it, not through force or manipulation, but through patience and truth. Later that day, I prepared for a board meeting that would officially recognize my contributions and assign me leadership responsibilities. I arranged my binder one last time, double-checking every detail. I did not feel the nervousness I once had. Instead, I felt calm, steady, and ready. The meeting began. Corbin was present, silent, watching. I presented my evidence, my work, and my recommendations clearly and ethically. The board listened, asked questions, and nodded. When the meeting concluded, it was unanimous. I would take charge of key divisions in the company, with clear authority and responsibility. In the weeks that followed, I noticed a real change in Corbin. The arrogance that had once dominated the office was replaced with humility. He sought my advice on projects, asked for guidance with clients, and even acknowledged the work I had done without complaint. It was not immediate trust, but it was a start. He had begun to face the consequences of his actions and admit his mistakes. I did not push him. I let God continue the work. My patience and integrity had created space for him to change. One morning, I found him in the conference room, reviewing client files. He looked up and offered a tentative smile. "Thaddeus, I've been reflecting. I realize now that I underestimated you, and I allowed fear and jealousy to guide me. I want to do better." I nodded quietly. Acknowledgement is the first step. Corbin, change comes gradually, but it begins with honesty. That afternoon, I met with Father to discuss the restructuring of responsibilities. I suggested clear boundaries between Corbin's divisions and mine, emphasizing fairness, ethics, and accountability. Father approved, noting that these boundaries would prevent future conflicts and ensure the company thrived. In the evening, I returned to my study. I placed my Bible on the desk and whispered a prayer. "God, thank you for guiding me. I have remained faithful, and you have fought for me without me raising my hands in anger. Continue to work through Corbin and let integrity always prevail." I also understood the importance of boundaries. Forgiveness was available, but trust was not automatic. I would allow Corbin the opportunity to rebuild, but I would protect my own dignity and the company's integrity. I spent mornings reviewing team reports, checking client accounts, and ensuring that every decision I made was guided by ethics and clarity. My goal was not to dominate, but to restore trust. Every employee I spoke to, every client I met, reinforced a simple principle. Integrity builds loyalty, and loyalty builds stability. Later that day, I held a meeting with key board members to finalize a strategic plan for the company. I presented detailed proposals for growth, emphasizing ethical business practices and fairness across all departments. Every recommendation was grounded in my experience and documented achievements. The board responded positively. Questions were asked, clarifications provided, and by the end of the meeting, consensus had been reached. My position was secure, my recommendations respected, and Corbin had agreed to follow guidelines that promoted accountability. That evening, I knelt in prayer, whispering Isaiah 41, verse 10. "Fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you." I realized then that the battle had never been about dominating Corbin or the company. It had been about patience, faith, and integrity. God had fought for me quietly, through circumstances and preparation, while I remained clean in heart. The next week brought further evidence of change. Corbin's demeanor had shifted. He no longer attempted to overshadow me in meetings or subtly undermine employees. Instead, he approached decisions with care, often consulting me before acting. The arrogance that had once been his shield was slowly giving way to humility. One morning, I found him in the conference room, reviewing financial reports. "Thaddeus," he said, looking up, "I've realized something important. I can't lead through fear or deception. I need to learn from your example. Can you guide me?" I nodded calmly. "I can, Corbin. Leadership is about integrity, patience, and honesty. If you commit to that, you'll not only help yourself but the company and the family." Corbin exhaled, relief and regret mingling in his expression. "I see now how wrong I was. I hope one day I can earn back your full trust." I smiled gently. Trust is earned through consistent action. You've begun, and that is the first step. Later that day, I met with Father to discuss long-term strategies for the family company. We reviewed department responsibilities, ethical standards, and client relations. I emphasized that boundaries and accountability were essential, not as punishment, but as safeguards for fairness and growth. Father nodded approvingly. "Thaddeus, you've handled everything with grace. You've taught the family and the company a valuable lesson. Integrity and faithfulness matter more than ambition unchecked by morals." I thanked God for guiding me, for protecting my heart from bitterness, and for showing me that righteous patience could achieve what anger never could. The following week, the company felt alive with new energy. My leadership had become visible. I started my morning reviewing client reports and project timelines. Every detail mattered. My binder of evidence, once a symbol of betrayal and pain, now represented clarity, diligence, and accountability. Each page told the truth of my contributions. Each fact reinforced my role, not just as a contributor, but as a leader. The next day, I noticed a remarkable shift in Corbin. He approached me with genuine humility and a clear goal: to contribute positively rather than compete or control. "Thaddeus," he said quietly, "I've been reviewing the client files you recommended, and I've noticed a few areas where I can improve processes. I want to help." I studied him carefully. His tone was sincere, free of arrogance or defensiveness. "That's good, Corbin. Leadership is about collaboration, honesty, and accountability. If you stay grounded in those principles, your contributions will matter." He nodded, taking notes as I guided him through procedures. It was a small moment, but significant. Corbin was no longer trying to erase me. He was learning how to work with me under principles of integrity and faith. Later, we held a meeting with key clients together. Corbin spoke thoughtfully, acknowledging my plans and offering suggestions that were ethical and practical. I noticed the board members' expression soften. They were witnessing not only my leadership, but also the first real evidence of Corbin's transformation. After the meeting, Corbin stayed behind. "I want to thank you, Thaddeus. I've learned patience, humility, and the power of acting with integrity. I see now that trying to dominate or erase you only hurt myself and the company." I smiled quietly. It takes courage to recognize mistakes and act differently. I've only acted with patience, integrity, and faith. God has guided the way. Corbin's transformation deepened over the following weeks. He approached each task with humility and honesty. He sought my advice, acknowledged mistakes, and worked diligently to rebuild trust with the board, employees, and clients. 2 weeks later, events began to shift subtly but powerfully. A key client who had been hesitant for months reached out, requesting that I lead a major expansion project. Another client expressed admiration for the ethical clarity of my work, signing a long-term contract that had been in jeopardy. Meanwhile, Corbin faced consequences for minor missteps he had ignored before. A poorly managed project drew scrutiny, and he accepted guidance without defensiveness. The situation was not orchestrated by me, yet the timing felt providential. God was acting quietly, rearranging circumstances to restore justice and clarity. I reflected on my journey. Betrayal, humiliation, and attempted erasure had once seemed overwhelming. But patience, faith, and moral clarity had allowed God to fight for me. I had not raised my hand in revenge, yet justice had arrived, subtle, precise, and undeniable. I walked through the quiet office that evening, observing employees collaborating with trust and confidence. Corbin approached me with a humble smile. "Thaddeus, I see now that God's hand has guided this outcome. I don't deserve the grace shown to me, but I am grateful. I am learning." I smiled softly. God fights for those who remain faithful. We only need to stay clean in heart and patient in action. The final steps in the journey were clear. Restoration required not only faith, but also boundaries. Forgiveness was offered, but trust had to be earned. I could not allow past mistakes or erasures to repeat themselves. I called a private meeting with Father and Corbin to discuss long-term roles. The sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting patterns across the polished wood floors. "Corbin," I began, "I forgive the past, but trust is not automatic. You must continue to act with humility, integrity, and accountability. This is not punishment. It is protection for both the company and our family." Corbin nodded solemnly. "I understand, Thaddeus. I am committed to learning and acting ethically." Father smiled. "This is wise. Boundaries protect relationships and ensure stability. You have both shown growth, and now the company can thrive under clear expectations." That evening, I whispered prayer. "God, thank you for guiding me, protecting my heart, and restoring justice. Let these boundaries preserve peace, integrity, and fairness in all we do." The company had shifted. My leadership was respected. Corbin had begun genuine transformation, and employees and clients trusted the clarity of our decisions. The journey from humiliation to recognition had been long, but God's hand had guided every step. Corbin approached me quietly. "Thaddeus, I want to thank you. I see now what true leadership looks like: faith, patience, and integrity. I hope to follow your example and rebuild trust fully. I nodded. That is the path forward. You are forgiven, but trust must be earned. Integrity and faith will guide you. I whisper my life, verse 1 last time. Fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. For the first time, I felt fully seen, fully restored, and fully ready to lead with integrity. The battle was over, but the lessons will remain forever. Patience, faith, moral courage, and the quiet assurance that God fights for those who remain upright and faithful. I smiled quietly, knowing that true power combines strength with mercy. I let God fight for me, and He did it without dirtying my hands.